Hello, and welcome to another lesson from Level Up Mathematics. In today's lesson, we will be writing quadratic functions when we're given 3 points on the parabola. So before we start, let's look at the steps for completing this process. In step 1, you want to substitute each of the 3 given points into the standard form equation y equals ax squared plus bx plus c. After you do that, you're going to form a system of 3 equations with 3 unknowns. In step 3, you're going to solve that system algebraically or using technology to determine the values of a, b, and c. And finally, you'll write the final equation by replacing the a, b, and c with the values that we found in step 3. So in example 1, I'm going to walk you through an example where we're going to solve it algebraically. So in example 1, it says formulate a quadratic function in standard form for the parabola that contains the points -2, -6, 0, 6, and 2, 2. Now, before we start, I just want to remind you of our standard form formula. Y equals ax squared plus bx plus c. And what we're trying to do is find the values of a, b, and c. Okay, so let's start by substituting in step 1. We're going to substitute in each point. So let's start with -2, -6. So in this point, -2 is your x value, -6 is your y value. So when we substitute this in, we will substitute in a -6 for the y and a -2 for each x. So a parenthesis -2 squared plus b parenthesis -2 plus c. And then number 2, now we're going to use the point 0, 6. So this time we'll plug in a 6 for the y and a 0 for each x. So a times 0 squared plus b times 0 plus c. Now we'll take the third point, 2, 2, and we'll substitute a 2 for the y and a 2 for each x. Now, after you've done all your substituting, the next thing you want to do is simplify this to form a system of equations. So what we're going to do here, I'm going to start right here. I'm going to simplify this side. So -2 squared is 4, and 4 times a is 4a. -2 times b is -2b plus c, and that's equal to -6. Now I'm going to take my next equation and simplify that. So 0 squared is 0. 0 times a is 0. So I don't have any a's. B times 0 is 0. So, and then all we have left is c. So we know c is equal to +6. All right, now we'll go to our third equation. All right, 2 squared is 4. So we have 4a. 2 times b is 2b plus c, and that equals 2. Now, this is the system of equations I'm going to solve. Let me write this down. This is our system right here that we're going to This is our system that we're going to solve. Now, this one's not going to be as bad as some of them to solve because we already know that one of the variables, c, is equal to 6. So I'm going to rewrite this system, and I'm going to substitute in a 6 for each c. So starting with the top equation, 4a minus 2b, and for the c, I'm going to plug in a 6, plus 6. equals negative 6. Then I'm going to take the bottom equation, 4a plus 2b, and instead of the c, I will plug in a 6, and that's going to equal 2. Now, let me simplify those a little further. This would be 4a minus 2. Let me write that a little neater for you. 4a minus 2b. Subtract 6 from both sides, and that would give us negative 6 minus 6 would give us negative 12. Then I'm going to take my second equation and do the same thing. 4a plus 2b equals, subtract 6, 2 minus 6 gives us negative 4. Now, instead of having a system of 3 equations, we have a system of 2 equations that are going to be very easy to solve using elimination, because we have opposites here. Negative 2b plus 2b will zero out. And then I can just add everything else together. So 4a plus 4a would be 8a equals negative 12 plus negative 4 is negative 16. And then I can divide both sides by 8. So negative 16 divided by 8 would be negative 2. So now I know the value of, let me write this down, get a different color. I know the value of A is going to be negative 2. I don't know B yet, but I do know that C is 6. The value of C is 6. So all we have to do now is find the value of B. So to do that, I'm going to plug it into one of my equations, and I'm going to plug in, I think, let's plug it in to this equation here because there's no negatives, all right? So I'm going to take, let me grab a different color here. I'm going to take that equation, and instead of 4a, I know that a is negative 2. So 4 times negative 2 plus 2b. Instead of c, I'm going to put a 6, and that's equal to 2. Now let's simplify this. Negative 8 plus 2b plus 6 equals 2. Now we have some like terms that can be combined here to simplify this. So 2b, negative 8 plus 6 is negative 2 equals 2. Now just solve for b. So add 2 to both sides. So 2b would equal 4. 4 divided by 2 is 2. So now we know the value of b is 2. So once you know the value of a, b, and c, you can rewrite your equation and fill in your value of a, b, and c. So negative 2x squared plus 2x plus 6. So this is your standard form equation for the parabola that passes through these 3 points. All right. In example 2, we will be using technology to solve the same process. So in example 2, it says the table below shows 3 points on a parabola. What is the vertex of this parabola? So before we find the vertex of the parabola, we need to find the equation. So I'm going to take each point and plug it into our standard form equation, which is y equals ax squared plus bx plus c. So I'll take this first equation. I'm going to put a 2 for the y and a 2 for each x. Okay, so there's our first point. Now I'll do the same thing for my next point. I'll put a 2 for the y, but this time I'm going to put a 6 for each x. Okay. Now, do that process one more time for the third point. Negative 1 equals a times 8 squared plus b times 8 plus c. Now, let's simplify that a little bit. So I'm going to take this and simplify it. So 2 squared is 4. So 4a. 2 times b is 2b plus c, and that's equal to positive 2. Now I'll go to my next equation. Simplify that. That would be 6 squared is 36a plus 6b plus c is equal to 2. Now I'm going to take my third equation. 8 squared is 64. So 64a plus 8b plus c equals -1. All right, now there's my system of equations, and I'm going to solve this system of equations using technology. In particular, I'm going to use the Desmos matrix calculator. You can also use a graphing calculator for the same process, but you may have to look up the step how to solve a system of 3 equations in 3 unknowns using your regular graphing calculator, because I'll be showing it on Desmos today. So what I'm going to do to solve this system using Desmos is I'm first going to make a matrix out of this system. So my matrix would look like this. In a matrix, we just use our coefficients, 4, 2, 1, and that's equal to 2. And then 36, 6, 1, that's also equal to 2. And then 64, 8, 1, and that's equal to -1. So that forms our matrix. Then you come over here to your Desmos calculator, you press new matrix, and you need to put in its size. So you're going to you want to edit matrix A. So I want to increase the number of rows to 3, and I want to increase the number of columns to 4. Now, very carefully, you want to enter your coefficients. So 4, side arrow, 2, side arrow, 1, side arrow, 2. Side arrow, 36, side arrow, 6, side arrow, 1, side arrow, 2. That's why I said very carefully, 2. Side arrow, 64, side arrow, 8, side arrow, 1, and side arrow, -1. All right. Once you have the matrix entered, hit the return bar to open up a new line, and you're going to use this button at the very bottom that says ref. So I'm going to push that, and then you have to tell it which matrix. We're using matrix A here. Now, the values in the very right hand column are your values of A, B, and C. So here we have A is -0.25, B equals 2, and C is equal to -1. So our equation will be, and I'm going to put this in fraction form, -1/4 x squared plus 2x minus 1. So that's our equation. Okay, I'll box that in. Now, to get the vertex, you need to use the formula x equals opposite b over 2 times a. So this would be opposite of b would be -2. And 2 times a, 2 times -1/4 is -1/2. And -2 divided by -1/2 would give you +4. So you know your vertex is going to be 4, something. To get the comma something, then you must find f of 4. So that means I'm going to plug in a 4 for each of these x values. Okay, so 4 squared is 16. 1/4 of 16 is 4, so that would be negative 4. 2 times 4 is 8, minus 1. So negative 4 plus 8 is 4. 4 minus 1 is positive 3. So my y value of my vertex is 3. So now we found the equation and we found the vertex. All right, example 3. Quadratic function h can be used to model the height in feet of a rocket from the ground t seconds after it was launched. The graph of the function is shown. What is the maximum height? In other words, they want us to find the vertex again. The maximum height will allow us to find the vertex. So I'm going to take each one of these points, starting with 1.5, 144, and plug it into our standard form, y equals ax squared plus bx plus c. All right, so 144 equals a times 1.5 squared plus b times 1.5 plus c. Now I'll take my next point, and it really doesn't matter which order you do these in. 200 equals a times 5 squared plus b times 5 plus c. And now I'll take my third point, 6, 144. So 144 equals a times 6 squared plus b times 6 plus c. Now let's simplify each one of those a little bit. 1.5 squared is 2.25a plus 1.5b plus c equals 144. Next equation, 5 squared is 25, so this would be 25a plus 5b plus c is equal to 200. 6 squared is 36a plus 6b plus c equals 144. Now we have our information that we need to form a matrix. So I'm going to come down here and I'm just going to use my coefficients. 2.25, 1.5, 1, and that's equal to 144. The next one, we have 25, 5, 1, and 200. And then our last one, we have 36, 6, 1, and 144. All right, so there's my matrix. Now I'm going to come over here to my matrix calculator, and I'm going to make a new matrix. They're going to call this matrix B because we've already used A. So remember, the first thing you want to do is edit the size of the matrix. So we have 3 rows and 4 columns. Now put your coefficients in. 2.25, side arrow, 1.5, side arrow, 1, side arrow, and 144, side arrow. 25, side arrow, 5, side arrow, 1, side arrow, 200, side arrow, 36, side, 6, side, 1, and 144. All right, once you have all of your entries in there, push the return button. And then at the bottom left corner, you're looking for the REF button. So we put REF. This time we're trying to calculate matrix B. So I want to put a B there. And remember, the 3 numbers on the far right column are your A, B, and C. So here our A is negative 16. Our B is 120, and our C is 0. So that means our equation is going to look like this. Y equals negative 16x squared plus 128. x. You do not need to put plus 0. All right. Now, they want the maximum height of the rocket. The maximum height is found at the vertex. So remember from our last problem, to get the vertex, you're going to have to use this formula, opposite b over 2a. So the opposite of 120 is negative 120. And 2 times a, 2 times negative 16 is negative 32. So I'm going to come over here and find the decimal for that 120 divided by 32. So 3.75. Now I want to find f of 3.75. So I'll put negative 16 times 3.75 squared plus 120 times 3.75. All right, I'm going to return. So I have used my calculator here. Let's see. This would be negative 16 times 3.75 squared is 3.75 times 3.75, and then plus 120 times 3.75. So that gives me 225. So the vertex of this function is 3.75, comma 225. Now, let's go back and see what they wanted to know. They want to know the maximum height. So, for the maximum height, we just want the y value of the vertex. So, the maximum height of the rocket is 225 feet. And I don't think we ever boxed in the equation too. Let's box that one in too. And that concludes today's lesson, writing quadratic functions given 3 points on the parabola.